Hello, welcome back to the channel where I'm joined by my friend and colleague Richard Lane and two hot hatchbacks. Richard, what are they?
First one, Golf GTI Clubsport 45. It's the 45th anniversary of the Golf GTI this year. This is basically a club sport, so circa 300 horsepower with a little bit of extra on it. Krapovic titanium exhaust, pretty fruity. We've got the honda-civic-type-r limited edition, one of our favourite hot hatches, just a little bit tighter, a little bit lighter, and should be very good indeed.
Superb. So I'm going to spend a bit of time in the Honda, Richard is going to spend some time in the Volkswagen, and at the end of it we are going to conclude which is best. Okay, so welcome to the inside of the Civic Type R, which is a sort of sleeves rolled up kind of place to be because there's no air conditioning and there's no radio stereo unit either. But that latter point is not necessarily a bad thing because Honda's infotainment is so bad that you're better off getting your own head unit with whatever CarPlay or Android thing that mirrors to your phone anyway. But that's part of the 49 kilogram weight saving that this car has over the regular Civic Type R. But whether it's regular Civic Type R or this limited edition, it's a terrific hot hatchback. But it's at its best in this form because there are slight changes to the dampers and springs and the steering and stuff just to account for the fact that this car's that little bit lighter. But what they do is they make it a wee bit more focused and a wee bit more connected. Anyway, it is the hot hatch that feels most like something like a Porsche 911 GT3. It's got that level of connection and engagement with the road. It's really keen and it's really focused and it really just sort of feels nailed down. Is it too stiff? I think if you were driving this car every single day, you might think, yeah, okay, a slightly softer car, perhaps like the Golf, is that kind of everyday hot hatch. But if you really want the best hot hatchback to drive, I think you are looking at it. Front wheel drive, that is, because let's not forget, there is the Toyota GR Yaris in existence as well. And as well as the best chassis in the business, it also has a really terrific engine. It's not like the old VTEC screamers of old because it's now got a turbocharger, a 2-litre turbo, and that's, you know, that's just par for the course these days. But what it is still mated to a really good, slick 6-speed manual gearbox. There's no auto option or anything like that. It's just really thoroughly snickety and well sorted. The pedal weights are great. The seats are fantastic. The driving position is really good, central, straight. When the wheel comes out a long way and you can sit close to the deck, it feels like a proper place to work. It's really, really thoroughly well sorted. And yes, as a result of all of that, it is perhaps not as easy to live with day to day as a lot of other hot hatchbacks in this market. But, well, that's the point, isn't it? That's the point. If your idea of a good journey is driving from home to racetrack, around a track a few times and then back again, this is the one to have, I'm pretty confident. But let's see what Richard thinks of the Volkswagen Golf and how he's getting on with that.
Now, it's probably fair to say that Volkswagen didn't nail the bullseye with the Mark 8 GTI. I think they've tried to build something a little bit more serious, but in doing so sacrificed quite a lot of the GTI's day-to-day usability and didn't quite get it right in terms of, you know, the sharp nosy dynamics that the more sporty hot hatches in the class have. I think there's an admission of the fact that they didn't get it quite right in the fact that this Clubsport version came out just 6 months later. So normally they'd leave it a couple of years, then introduce a more hardcore version. But with the Mark 8, it's come out almost immediately. We've got the Clubsport 45 here, which is basically an anniversary edition. Volkswagen's currently in the habit of celebrating the Golf GTI's anniversary in 5-year increments, and some of those cars, like the Edition 30, have proved really, really good to drive. A bit firm sometimes, but really sharp and really quick. So the Clubsport uses the same EA 888 Evo 4 4-cylinder 2-litre turbo that the normal GTI uses, and also the Golf R. Powers up from around 240 horsepower to closer to 300. Obviously Golf R is making around 316, well, exactly 316 at the moment, so it's slightly detuned on that. But Clubsport, it's about a second faster to 60, and it is a pretty devastatingly quick car, in fairness. but it's not all about the numbers. If you look in the suspension, there's new mounts for the control arms, a couple of other new parts. The upshot being that they've increased rear stability and introduced a bit of negative camber, which has two benefits. The first of which is more cornering grip, and the second of which is a bit more subjective. It would normally give you a bit better steering feel if you just increase the negative camber a touch, which is what they've done. As for the interior, well, it's basically pure GTI Clubsport in here. You've got these modular seats. They've got a bit of GTI insignia stitched into the backs. They've got a unique trim on them. They're pretty comfortable. They're exactly the same seats you get in the Golf R, and they probably work better in the Golf R because it's got a more GT vibe, and they're quite soft and they're quite comfortable, and they're a little bit high compared to the amazing seats in the Honda. Personally, I'd have preferred it if VW had cracked out some proper bucket seats for this car, but again, that probably would have punted the price up another couple of grand at least. Infotainment, well, the less said the better. It's a pretty laggy system, it's a bit unpredictable, but on balance I'd probably rather have this than what Matt's got in Honda, which is nothing at all. Elsewhere, there's some 45 detailing on the steering wheel, and obviously exterior-wise, you've got the decals that run down the side. They're not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but you know, there's certainly no mistaking the car on the road. But the main difference with this 45th anniversary car is the Akrapovic exhaust, and it's a bit of a tricky one because you don't say no to a titanium Akrapovic exhaust normally, but Volkswagen is still, you can hear it, they're relying on the sound symposer for a bit of intake noise, but it does sound good actually. You know, when you let this engine run out, so the question is, does the Clubsport package unlock the car the Mark 8 Golf GTI should have been from the start? It's a bit of a cliche, manufacturers often do this, a set of upgrades makes the car perform in the way we would have hoped it would from the outset. In this case, the answer is mostly. The good bit is you can really feel the improvement in the steering. There's just a little bit more clarity. You can just lean on the nose of the car with a little bit more confidence. I wouldn't say it's any easier to place on the road than the regular GTI. It's just that you've got that 10-20% more feedback coming through the steering, and in hot hatches, that's really what you want. Actually, you want total confidence in the front of the car. That said, I'm still not convinced they've brought this up to the level it really needs to be. I think a BMW 128 Ti steers more sweetly. Obviously, that's got the mechanical LSD in the front, whereas this has got Volkswagen's VDQ electronic locking differential on the front axle. I think the Honda on those Cup 2 tyres has certainly got more clarity and poise on the way into bends than this car. As for suspension, this car's fitted with Volkswagen's DCC adaptive dampers. Amazingly, given the asking price of the car, these are still an £800 or thereabouts option. They're a bit ridiculous, to be honest, and they take some figuring out. You've now got 15 different settings for damper response, which frankly is more than anyone needs. Obviously the Honda is also on adaptives, but only with the 3 modes in that car. So 15 modes in this car. To be honest, on British roads, you are best putting the powertrain into sport, keeping the steering in comfort and leaving the dampers in comfort. And with the car set up like that, it will cover ground at an absolute rate. That's one thing this car isn't. It may not be the most feelsome hot hatch, even with the Clubsport editions, but my God, is it fast. It is genuinely, brilliantly quick across the ground. But you can really trust it. Again, it's those modifications to the suspension, both at the front and the back of the car, because the suspension at the back of the car, the way a car is set up at the rear axle, is going to have an effect on the way the car steers. And I think it's those changes at both axles for the Clubsport kit that have actually made a really discernible difference to the GTI driving experience. So Can you find a flow in this car? Yes, you can. Could you do that in the regular GTI? Not so easily. Is the Honda a more engaging device? I think it absolutely is. Is it more hard work when you just want to flow down a British B road at between 50 and 60 miles an hour? I think it is, and I think that's where the Golf, especially in this club sport specification, slots in and just finds its niche in the hot hatch hierarchy a little bit more easily than the regular car. All right, so the £40,000 question. Does this most rarefied of all Golf GTIs feel special enough for the money? I think in the cold light of day, you've got a really difficult job on your hands arguing that this car's worth the money, especially when something as fluid and playful as the Focus ST is considerably less expensive. You've got the 128 Ti, we've talked about it a couple of times. That is a car with probably a little bit more engineering feel, for want of a better phrase, which a lot of people want in their front drive hot hatches. And then, you know, obviously on this exact price level, you've got something like the Honda, and that car's ability to involve you and make itself feel serious in a way that's quite rare in this class. It is genuinely, that Honda is genuinely like a 911 GT3 in the hot hatch class. It's got that similar feel and focus and energy about it. And I think in light of that, this car was always going to struggle. That said, if you do love the usability of the GTI, and for its faults, this is still an amazingly usable car. Very easy to get along with. If you like that, if that is your ticket, this car is, trust me, as fast as you will ever need your hot hatch to be, front wheel drive or four wheel drive. It's got some visual punch. That exhaust is a lovely bit of trick equipment, even if in isolation it's probably not worth the extra money. I think you can make the case for this car. I just think today with the Honda, not for me.
Ultimately then, the Golf retains a level of everyday usability that the Civic does not, but you know what? Open a window and fit an aftermarket stereo, because the Civic is, to my mind, the better hot hatchback. And it is the winner here. Now, if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and if you turn on post notifications, you'll never miss another Autocar video. We'll see you next time.